14. I closed the Quandary of the Order. My mind was so tired. I could barely make 2 pages at a time, and the pages were massive, and the text was tiny, and it was in an alien writing, and though I was able to read it with the help of the earbuds that Scar had given me, I still didn't know how that worked, but it was still so hard. The most boring reading I had ever done. And it was the history of the Jedi Order, which is cool, but in the most boring way, and I had to stop. I finally texted Scar and said, I need to get out. And she said, all right, meet me in the park, and we'll head somewhere. I said, thank you. And I went and I met her there. And she said, all right, let's do another training. And this is going to be your last training. The last thing that I can teach you. Everything else you're going to have to learn for yourself. I said, all right, what's the last lesson? She said, well, we've talked about different kinds of portals. There are places like the tree, the spot, the dirt where we go to Pokemon, the grass that led you to Teletubbies. There are objects such as the metal ring that I take to Coruscant, or other things. And there are also states of mind that can act as portals. I was like, okay, keep going. She explained that when you're in a certain state of mind, it can connect you to another world because it's a similar emotion, a similar state that can connect 2 worlds for you. However, because everyone's mind is different, our mental connections are personal. And she said, that's why I haven't taught you this before, because I can't really show it to you or take it to you, but just kind of explain it. And I said, okay, I'm not sure that I really follow. Like, what do you mean state of mind? Like, what is it for you? And she said, well, the world that I connect to is I feel the gate and the portal, and it opens up to me when I think of home, and when I have the feeling of being home. I feel the portal, and I'm able to go through. And she said that I tried to imagine what she was feeling and saying and imagining, and I could feel it. I could feel what it was like to feel home. Though I could feel Scar's version, it was not, there was an ache of sadness that I didn't associate with home, but I could feel that in the way that she felt it. But as I was thinking about, as I was feeling her feeling, I felt a portal open up. I thought, what? And I took it, and everything surged around me and came back out to show massive plateaus as far as the eye could see, and massive chasms in between them. Oh, whoa, this is a cool world. And Scar came through a second later, and she had a concerned look on her face. She said, you shouldn't be able to do that. And I said, I've been told that a lot lately. She said, no, this is like a personal place for me. You shouldn't be able to come here. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm here. She said, yeah, you're here. I should have thought that you'd be able to show up here. Well, I guess now that you're here, you want me to show you around? I said, sure. She said, all right. I usually don't come in from here, so we're far way away from anywhere really, but we're going to have to do some traveling to get there. Physical traveling. And I said, well, I've got my broom. And she said, all right, if you can take yourself, I can take myself. And so I got on my broom, and she launched herself through the air, shot straight through the air, and didn't make it back down to the ground before she shot back up again. I thought, that is so cool. Oh my gosh. And I got on my broom and raced after her. It was kind of hard to talk, so we just went along and I followed her lead. And we eventually came to where there were massive craters in the ground and people living in these craters. And we came to one of them and continued to fly above until Scar led us to like a fortress type palace that was there. We landed down on the front steps, Scar slamming down on the ground, and I landed more gracefully. And the guards out front seemed to recognize Scar and opened the doors for her, let her in. And we came in, and everything on the inside was lit with glowing gemstones. And it was beautiful. There wasn't much decoration, but it was gorgeous. And the people were wearing all kinds of intricate clothes. It was so cool. And Scar went up to one of the women there and whispered something to her. And the woman directed her upstairs. Scar nodded in thanks and gestured for me to join her. We went up the stairs and got there in time to see a man in this massive armor come out. And he was saying something to some attendants. And then he looked and saw Scar. And he bellowed out laughter, and Scar jumped up and they gave each other a massive bear hug, and both seemed to hug as hard as they could, and ended up as a stalemate. And he dropped Scar down and said, "Good to see you, Scar. It's been a while." And she said, "Thanks." She said, "I have someone here to meet you. You remember the guy that I was telling you about?" And I said, "Yeah." And Scar gestured over to me. He looked at me. This man with this battle-scarred face looked like he was getting older, but still had massive amounts of energy. He extended a gauntleted hand to me, and I took it. He said, "Dalinar." I said, "Gee." He said, "Good to meet you." He said, "I wish I could take time for you, but we're actually just going to go do a bridge run right now. There's a battle going that's about to go on." And Scar's eyes lit up, and she said, "Yes! It's been way too long since I've taken part in this." And I said, "Well, you're able to join us if you'd like." And she nodded vigorously. And I thought, oh no, what is this all about? We all came out, and there was a giant black horse waiting for him. And he got on, and he had some attendants run ahead, and they got horses for us, and we rode down to the beginning of these plateaus and chasms for, again, as far as the eye could see. And an army was gearing up, and they had bridges that moved to go between these chasms. And everything, just so much going on, and giant hermit crabs and fairies made of light. I was so confused, but it was way cool. And we started making our way along. It was a lot longer of a trek than I anticipated, which gave us some time to talk and for me to ask what in the world we were doing. And Scar was not giving me much information. I was kind of a little bit worried. I said, "Scar, I can't fight." And she said, "You did fine with Bolt." I said, "Yes, but he did the fighting. I can't do that." And she said, "You've got the Force, you've got training with an Elvish sword, and you've got me. You'll be fine." And it wasn't as reassuring as she thought it would be. But we traveled for a while, and I kind of got to know this man Dalinar and his son, who also had massive armor. And we went out across these plateaus and got to where there was another army lining up, warriors with shell on their arms and red and black marbling all across their skin, and they all seemed to be chanting. It all became a whole lot more real in that moment. And there was just one plateau between us and them. And the army laid the plateau in between ours and theirs. And Dalinar gave a nod and raced forward, and Scar said, "Come on," and she raced forward with her horse. And I threw mine in motion as well. I was so scared. but I was going to stay as close to Scar as I could because I felt like that was the safest place, which in retrospect, I don't know if that's true, but I did it. And we raced forward, and Dalinar's horse way outpaced ours. And about halfway across the plateau, he threw himself off the horse and slammed on the ground and ran, keeping pace with the horse as he ran across the plateau. And he ran to the edge and threw himself off. And at the top of his arc, as the enemies were shooting arrows at him, a massive sword formed in his hands, and he slammed down and swept out, killing the Parshendi, as he called them, all around him. And his son did the same, and Scar's horse ran across, and before she got midway across, she jumped off her horse and started running because she could run faster than it could, and she ran off and dodged arrows along the side, catched a few and threw them down to the ground, and she threw herself off the edge of the plateau and ignited her lightsaber on the way down and slammed down and started fighting alongside. And I thought, oh no, but something pushed me on, and I calmed myself the best that I could. Meditation does not work on a horse and does not work super well when you're running against an army. But my horse ran along, and I slowed it down and stopped it and got off and started to run. And I was able to use the Force to deflect the arrows. That was not a problem. I had been doing some practice. Don't tell Syl, but I'd been doing some practice, and I was able to force them out of the way. And I was also able to force myself forward to run faster than I possibly could otherwise. And I ran forward, and I got to the edge of this 20, 30-foot chasm, and I used the Force and launched myself into the air. And I flew up and crested the thing, and I landed and stumbled and caught myself amid the other three as they were fighting, and pulled myself up and was able to pull out the Elvish sword and kind of stood shakily. And I didn't want to fight. I did not feel ready for this, but somehow I managed to calm myself. And the other three were fighting back to back, and so I had a ring to kind of work with, and they let in one of the warriors, and he came at me, and I stilled myself. I knew my movements, and I just gave my mind over to the Force, and it seemed to fill my mind and control my movements. And I slapped away his spear and fought and cut off his head. And normally that would be traumatic for me. But again, something about the Force filled my mind and almost clouded it. It made it more clear, but it wasn't me that was doing this anymore. It was the Force, and it almost took away my memory of the thing. I wasn't traumatized somehow, but I realized that I could do this, and I worked my way to the beginning of the circle, and I started to fight alongside them, and I was parrying and tossing spears and killing Parshendi, and I was fighting, and they made a surge to try to push me back, and I pushed back with the Force and knocked them down, and I knocked down an area of them, and some of them fell down into the chasm. And I realized I can do this. And I started fighting, and it just became a blur, and it was incredible. I was graceful, I was fast, I was controlled, and eventually our armies got across the plateau and placed a bridge, and they came through and pushed the Parshendi back. And I kind of went out on my own and started fighting around on all sides, and it was absolutely incredible, and using the Force. And a number of them tried to just push me off the chasm, but I used the Force and threw myself into the air and threw myself over this wave of Parshendi and shoved them and threw them all over the edge, and it was incredible, and I was going, and it was crazy. And eventually the fighting came to an end, and the Parshendi retreated back and jumped across the chasms of their own accord. And our men let out a whoop, and we made our way to the center of the plateau where there was a massive carapace like chrysalis. And Dalinar stepped up to it and gestured for Scar and said, "Would you like to do the honors?" She said, "Gladly." Took out her lightsaber and carved a circle out of this chrysalis and pulled off the shell, and ooze began to drip out. She reached her hand straight into the goop and ripped out an emerald the size of her head and glowing like the sun. She raised it up and everyone gave a cheer, and it was the most victorious battle I had ever fought. End of chapter 13.